Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello and welcome to all of you joining from the Americas, Europe, or Africa. We will now get started. Welcome to launch day of FSC Aligned for EUDR, an important milestone in the global fight against deforestation. My name is Trevor Armel, Director of Marketing for FSC International, and I will be your moderator and guide of sorts as we move through today's launch. Why are we here? Companies have exactly 180 days from today remaining to comply with the Regulation on Deforestation-Free Products, or EUDR. To date, many organizations struggle to understand the requirements or to translate them into action. And it's against this backdrop that today the Forest Stewardship Council is launching FSC Aligned for EUDR, a set of solutions to support companies with their compliance obligations. For FSC as a system, this is the culmination of more than 1 year of dedicated work to make EUDR a reality. So a moment we will all soon be celebrating in due course. This webinar is intended primarily for companies impacted by EUDR and who would seek to retain access to the single market. It will be recorded and available in all supported languages distributed after the call. As we get started, a couple of opening points related to housekeeping. The first, EUDR is not just Europe. It is, of course, law in the 27 member states, but in our connected world, the impact is global. From an FSC perspective, we see around 9,000 certificate holders who are affected by the regulation within the European Union alone. But as you look outside the borders of the EU, the impact is even greater. Around 21,000 who are impacted either directly or indirectly, for a total of 30,000 potentially impacted. As a global system, this has been a key point and key consideration for us throughout the work that you'll see today. And it is also precisely why this event is taking place in 12 languages, which is in itself a noteworthy point as the webinar with the most extensive simultaneous interpretation support I think we've provided to date. Today's launch is available in FSC's official languages, English, Spanish, and French, as well as Portuguese, German, Ukrainian, and Turkish. It will also be available in Thai, Vietnamese, Indonesian, Bahasa, and Chinese from recordings through an earlier session. So if you are joining from any of these areas or simply prefer to brush up on your language skills, do encourage you to toggle to your preferred language following the directions you see on screen. And it's also a reminder for all of us presenting today to hold back the excitement and talk slowly to allow the interpreters a moment to catch up. The second point, as this is a complex and technical topic, there's an unbelievable variety of questions. Some are best addressed directly by the European Union. Some others have already perhaps been answered by FSC or will be answered by FSC. And others are even more specific and unique to your particular context and where you're based in a supply chain. We are not offering a Q&A today, but we'll help you navigate any questions you may have nonetheless. Keep an eye on the chat as well. We'll be dropping relevant links throughout, including some information on how to access what exists so far. And for more specific or technical questions you may have, we will address those through a follow-up webinar series throughout the month of July that dives deeper on certain aspects of our offerings that you may be interested in and would be the perfect venue to explore this detail with our experts. There are also other mechanisms to stay in contact, which we will share at the end of this webinar. All right, and finally, our agenda for today. It's broken in 4 main sections, and here are some of the other faces that you'll be meeting soon as well. And over the next 54 minutes, we will first remind you about the EUDR context and challenge and what it means specifically for companies. For this, Mark will be taking you through. Hey, Mark.
Greetings to you all.
Mark Jessel is our Chief System Integrity Officer and also sponsor of our EUDR work. Then we will move on to reveal FSC's offering to support companies with their compliance obligations, among other benefits. For this, I'll introduce you to Xenia. Hey, Xenia.
Hello, and welcome to wherever you're on this world.
And Xenia is presenting what we could say is the main event, which is the unveiling of our solution. And Xenia Marks is our business marketing program manager and also go-to-market lead on EUDR. Then we'll be moving a little deeper and transitioning from the what to the how And for this, Yannicka. Hello, Yannicka.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here.
Yannicka Murphy is our Policy Outreach Manager who will explain it all. A face that if you don't know already, she will be hosting several of the deep dive webinars to come that I mentioned. And she will be giving an overview of what's available now and how to use it as well as what's to come. And finally, that's me there on the right. I won't introduce myself again, but I will come back to sum it up and tell you how you can get involved. And before we blast off, a quick temperature check for the companies in the room. 180 days. You may have heard that at the beginning and immediately started checking your calendar to sort of say, is that really the number, the deadline that we're working? And it is an unplanned but fortunate coincidence. The poll should now deploy, and what we'd like to know from you is a little bit about your preparation state. How ready do you currently feel for EUDR? On a scale of 1, not ready at all in the slightest, to 5, ready to rock and roll. And depending where you're at in the journey, this may conjure a particular emotion. Many of us have experienced the full spectrum. Personally, I've had a sense of optimism, confusion, overwhelm, at times a little bit of panic, recently a little bit more clarity and resolve. Okay, so we can take a look at the results. It's a bit of a mix. So 23% of you feel not ready in the slightest. So hopefully we can help you with that. And actually the highest percentage is somewhere in the middle, 34%, feeling, yeah, there in the middle. There are, let's say 15% of you are feeling a little bit more ready to go. So interesting to see that. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and get started and jump into it. And from this, I will now invite you to hear from Mark. Mark, over to you.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Okay, we're having a little challenge with the transition, but here I am. Okay, so as many of you will know, ladies and gentlemen, forests are the first line of defense against climate change and biodiversity loss. We rely deeply on forests to clean our air, filter our water. Forests provide a habitat to more than 2/3 of terrestrial wildlife and plants around the world, and forests also are home to over 300 million people around the world. At the same time, deforestation and forest degradation are some of the biggest threats facing forests worldwide. Imagine that 420 million hectares of forests worldwide, that's an area larger than the EU, have been lost between 1990 and 2020. With trees absorbing and storing carbon dioxide, forest loss and damage is the cause of around 10% of global warming. There's simply no way that we can fight the climate crisis if we don't stop deforestation. So where does this leave the EU in relation to this global picture that I've described? Well, as the world's largest single market, the EU holds immense power over the future of forests. EU consumption habits and opaque supply chains currently cause about 10% of global deforestation. However, as of the 29th of June, 2023, the EU regulation on deforestation-free products has entered into force, giving operators and traders 18 months to implement its rules. So this EUDR regulation is in existence in order to address the climate and biodiversity crises. And from our perspective, it's important that we act for forests. This is a law that seeks to minimize the EU's contribution to deforestation and degradation. And it seeks to do so by putting a sharp focus on the traceability of supply chains. Now, on the right hand of this screen, you will see a diagram that we've drawn from a Bloomberg News item that carried out an analysis of UN Comtrade data. And it provides an overview of the 7 commodities that are targeted by EUDR And it shows that wood is by far the largest and natural rubber the second largest contributor towards deforestation. These just happen to be the two areas that FSC actively certifies. So by managing risks associated with wood and rubber, we think that about 60% of markets currently driving deforestation could be addressed in a meaningful way. So what is EUDR asking you? It's asking, first of all, that products be deforestation and degradation free. The degradation, it's worth noting, applies specifically to wood-based products. It also demands that products be produced in accordance with relevant legislation. So this places on companies an onus to gather information, conduct due diligence, assess risks, and mitigate risks. And you will see this diagram come up on a few occasions throughout the course of this presentation. It's worth noting that this applies to all companies trading in and with the EU. And the deadline for putting all of these measures in place is going to be the 30th of December, 2024, in 180 days. Now, because we have spoken to many of you through interviews, through surveys, we are aware of many of the concerns that you have. We know, for example, that developing credible risk assessments when sourcing material from many locations is a concern of yours. We know that many of you have faced difficulty understanding and implementing what amounts to a complex regulation. We know that producing and managing required due diligence statements in large companies is a challenge. We know that those of you that are working across different commodities face the challenge of interoperability of different systems. We know also that providing secure, reliable data sharing mechanisms such as blockchain along a supply chain is in itself a formidable challenge. And lastly, but by no means least, getting accurate geolocations and times of production from suppliers is a concern that we've heard you voice, and this lies at the very, very core of the EUDR requirement. So by choosing FSC, you already chose forests. And what I mean here is that as, for example, a certificate holder, you're already committed to sustainable forestry. But what we now want to help you with is to demonstrate compliance. You're with FSC because you want the best, not only for your businesses, but also for forests and for people. Now, FSC was formed 30 years ago this year because there weren't strict enough regulations in place. And in this respect, FSC and EUDR's missions are mutually reinforcing. Finally, FSC brings perspectives together, and you are already part of that conversation. With a membership of over 1,200 NGOs, businesses, individuals, and civil society organizations, we already have a shared goal within FSC. Now, it's of course taken a while for us to get to this launch point. And here's a short video for you to recap our journey to date. I hope you enjoy it.
The EU Regulation on Deforestation-Free Products, EUDR, came into force in June 2023. FSC standards are some of the world's most robust, but we asked ourselves, do they align with EUDR? To find out, we analyzed our certifications against the EUDR requirements. What we found was promising. Our forest management certification already met most EUDR requirements, sometimes exceeding them. Our chain of custody certification also met many requirements, with space to evolve. We accelerated the development of FSC Trace and created a new standard as an optional add-on. We expanded our risk assessment framework and held a powerful public consultation. 30 days, 400+ participants, 2,000+ open comments. We interviewed and surveyed almost 400 affected companies to understand their needs and made improvements based on their feedback. We launched the FSC Aligned for EUDR Early Adopter Program, selecting 20+ companies for the first wave, and more direct onboarding planned as it expands. We convened, listened, learned, enhanced, fine-tuned, and are ready to release the first components of FSC Aligned for EUDR. Thank you to everyone who played a part in this journey so far.
And this brings me to the end of my slot, and it's my pleasure to now introduce you to Ksenia, who is going to tell you about our solution. Ksenia, over to you.
Thank you, Mark. I think after Mark's section, it's very clear to those that are committed to sustainable forestry that this regulation is really needed. But there's no denial. These are strict rules, and proving compliance will be difficult, even to those that are already committed to sourcing sustainably. That's why FSC embraced the challenge to build a solution to support our certificate holders. I will now have the privilege to unveil the outcome of our efforts. And for that, let me start by playing a short video.
For 30 years, the Forest Stewardship Council has been fighting for resilient forests and forest communities. The European Union's regulation on deforestation-free products, the EUDR, is fast-tracking new obligations for businesses, and the implications are global. It's a promise toward a deforestation and degradation-free market to keep our forests thriving. As the December deadline approaches, many organizations may feel overwhelmed by the preparation EUDR requires. That's where FSC Aligned for EUDR comes in, an innovative set of solutions providing a clear path to compliance, from forest to product, and a familiar format for taking action, helping FSC certificate holders meet these requirements with confidence. How does it work? FSC Aligned for EUDR involves 3 key elements. The core is FSC certification. As the global benchmark for sustainable forestry, the FSC system already meets, and in some cases exceeds, the EUDR's sustainable forestry requirements. The second is FSC Aligned certification for EUDR. It provides a mechanism to support compliance for any type of supply chain, to ease reporting and due diligence efforts. It includes the FSC regulatory module, the FSC risk assessment framework, and access to FSC Risk Hub, empowering you to identify risks of origin according to your location. The third is FSC Aligned reporting for EUDR, powered by FSC Trace. FSC Trace enables end-to-end supply chain traceability, streamlining and automating data collection so you can easily deliver your due diligence reports and statements, all while keeping your data safe and secure. The bottom line? FSC Aligned for EUDR is designed to help streamline the complex task of compliance. So, are you ready to be part of the change? Join us in making transparent, deforestation-free supply chains a reality. For when forests flourish, we all do.
So I hope the video gave you a first impression of the solution which FSC's experts have been working on during the past year. As you saw, it consists of 3 essential elements, and I will take you through each one of them step by step. The first one, and at the core, is FSC certification. FSC Aligned certification is the add-on standard that covers specific EUDR requirements, and FSC Aligned reporting is the technology add-on that will enable you to gather and report data in accordance with the EUDR obligations. Together, These three elements form the holistic solution by FSC that helps you meet EUDR obligations. So just going back very quickly to this slide that Mark already presented on the EUDR obligation. So what is EUDR asking for? Throughout the presentation now, I will take you through the solutions and you will be able to see the tracker at the bottom where the solutions fit in and where they can support each one of these EUDR obligations. And I will be starting with the core. FSC certification. It is your best starting point. We made sure that if you choose FSC Aligned for EUDR, your products are deforestation-free in alignment with the EU regulation. FSC certification already meets and in some cases exceeds the regulation's obligations. But FSC certification is so much more than that. It means the strongest protection for workers. It means indigenous peoples are respected and involved in important decisions related to the forest. And FSC certification also has the highest requirements for biodiversity protection currently available for commercial forestry. And there's so much more. It is so much more than just a means to meeting a regulation. It is a true commitment to responsible forestry, and it's a solid foundation on which our solution, FSC Aligned for EUDR, is built. Let's dive a bit deeper into the first add-on, which is FSC Aligned certification for EUDR. It consists of two components, FSC Regulatory Module and FSC Risk Assessment Framework. The FSC Regulatory Module is a powerful add-on designed to address EUDR-specific requirements. So EUDR is a highly complex regulation. It consists of 323 clauses. And as mentioned before, many EUDR requirements are already covered by the FSC certification. Our FSC experts translated the additional ones into this regulatory module that complements, oh, sorry, and I forgot to move the slide on this, but I'm telling you still the right things. So that it complements your certification. It's your guide to the complexity. So this module will enable you to address EUDR obligations in a familiar format. So all of those that are already working with FSC standards will be quite used to this. Later in this presentation, Jannika will talk a bit more about how it works. The second component is the FSC Risk Assessment Framework. So this important piece of the solution outlines how to develop and revise risk assessments for a country or a geographic area. FSC's Risk Assessment Framework is aligned with EUDR, of course, and it's a key tool to manage your risk. Going beyond the ordinary, FSC will soon introduce FSC Risk Hub. So this is a cutting-edge technology that will facilitate risk management and data processing, for example, for EUDR, but also beyond that. It will be an online platform where FSC risk assessments will be published and maintained to support data management of these important documents. The platform will also provide a tool for you to enable certificate holders to store their own risk assessments. We're currently building this exciting piece of technology with our partner Esri, so stay tuned for an update, and there will be a bit more on this later as well. To sum up the key benefits of our solution of FSC Aligned certification, get to use an expert solution. It's really purpose-built for accuracy, making sure it's aligned with EUDR. Leverage your existing FSC certification. It's already a strong mitigation measure, and especially if you're FM, so Forest Management certified, or Chain of Custody 100% certified, it makes EUDR compliance so much easier. You get to use a familiar format, and it's ready to be used right now. You can gain an extra layer of credibility by leveraging the power of an independent verification. You can stay on top of potential risks and you're empowered to mitigate them. So to sum it up, FSC Aligned certification will be your trusted guide through the complexity of EUDR. And what's more, it's voluntary, but it's also available without additional cost to FSC. So it's included in your existing certification. Let's look at the other side. So we do know that data gathering and reporting is a key concern for companies, and Mark already touched upon that before. So what we've been developing is FSC Aligned reporting for EUDR. FSC Aligned reporting for EUDR is powered by FSC Trace. It's a solution specifically designed to meet EUDR obligations concerning data gathering and reporting. So how will it be done? In September this year, FSC will introduce FSC Trace. You might have heard about it. It's formerly called FSC Blockchain. This is our secure data sharing technology, which allows you to share critical information across your supply chain. From the forest to the product, every step can be accounted for. All certificate holders will have access to this technology, and the basic version of the solution will be available inside your certification, so there will be no additional cost for you. One incredibly useful feature of FSC Trace will be FSC Aligned reporting for EUDR. It will enable you to produce due diligence statements and reports automatically. Once you use FSC Trace and you connect all your FSC certified suppliers to the platform, you can gather data from the suppliers, and along with other data from the FSC data systems, FSC Aligned reporting will collate that data and produce automatic reports and due diligence statements. So with FSC Aligned, reporting for EUDR will come at ease, and even for those supply chains that are more complex or more dynamic because you have a lot of changing suppliers. It's a convenient feature of FSC Trace. So, and it will be launched a bit later in October, Q4 round. And so I encourage you to get as many of your suppliers onto FSC Trace once it's available, and you can start collecting the important data that you will need to report back to the EU. So once the EU releases its online platform Traces, not to be confused with FSC Trace, of course. So once they release their platform, you will be able to upload your due diligence statements. And what's also good to know, we're looking at interoperability of FSC Trace with the EU system, but also with the company systems. So stay tuned for updates on FSC Trace. Later in this webinar, you will also get a few more details on how it works and how you can use it. So to sum up again the benefits of this part of the solution, FSC Aligned reporting for EUDR powered by FSC Trace will allow you to track and verify data from the forest to the product. You can integrate risk assessments and supplier data for transparency and accountability. Draft due diligence statements practically automatically, and organize and report complex supply chain data with ease. What's also important and noteworthy, this is a secure data sharing mechanism. So you have full control of your data, and only you decide who can see that data in your supply chain. I want to end this product presentation with a short summary of FSC Aligned for EUDR. It will support your compliance journey in every aspect, building on FSC certification, the gold standard of sustainable forestry at the core. It ensures responsible practices aligned with EUDR and FSC's mission, most importantly, of promoting environmentally appropriate, socially viable, and socially beneficial and economically viable, sorry for that, management of the world's forest. So it's, as I said before, much more than just a way to meet compliance. FSC Aligned certification seamlessly integrates EUDR requirements into your operations. It's your guide through the complexity of this regulation. And FSC Aligned reporting simplifies the complex task of generating thousands of due diligence statements and reports. So FSC Aligned for EUDR is your true enabler from the forest to the product. It empowers your compliance. Now, as Mark said earlier, when we started on this journey, we reached out to a lot of our stakeholders, including lots of companies, because what we wanted to build should not only be a reflection of the regulation, but also reflect the realities of the companies that need to be working with this. So what we built, apart from reaching out in interviews and surveys, we also launched an early adopter program. We invited 22 companies and some auditors to test our solutions and give us feedback. We ensured diversity across geography, industry, and size of companies. And we already incorporated a lot of feedback from them into our supporting mechanisms and templates. And we will continue to learn and improve as we go forward. So from those companies that have joined us in the program, we have some statements that I would like to share with you right now. From Panda Panels, the EUDR Early Adopter Program has helped us fully appreciate the scope of the EUDR process and provided us with the excellent template to work from. And from Grupo Fortaleza, implementing the simplified risk assessment template eased the complexity of compliance with EUDR by synthesizing the most essential elements in one template. And ending on a high note, in this section, I will now show you a video of Tatwin, a latex producer from Thailand. They are committed to sustainable sourcing of rubber and have also been a part of our early adopter program.
Hello everyone, Tatwin is a processor of FSC certified natural rubber latex in Thailand. We export the raw material worldwide to manufacturers of consumer products. We're proud to be part of the early adopter program. Participating in the program has significantly enhanced our ability to meet the requirements of the EU Deforestation Regulation, EUDR.
The simplified risk assessment provided by the FSC regulatory module has been instrumental in ensuring our compliance with EUDR. It has streamlined our processes, making it easier to identify, assess, and mitigate potential risks associated with deforestation in our supply chain.
The comprehensive tools and resources offered through the FSC regulatory module has empowered us to implement the best practices in forest management and supply chain transparency.
We highly recommend FSC regulatory module to any companies committed to EUDR compliance, responsible sourcing, and environmental sustainability. Tatwin's participation in this program underscores our unwavering commitment to protecting the planet and fostering sustainable development for future generations.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Xenia, very much. It is great to see some of the experiences from our early adopters coming in. Special shout out to Jerry and Keelong Fu for taking the time from their busy schedules to prepare that, and in English as well for the benefit of our global audience here. We also looked at their website earlier, and the work they're doing in Thailand is impressive, so I think we've dropped a link in the chat. Okay, please also note that we have dedicated follow-up forums for questions. So any questions that have occurred through this section or the next one, you'll have a chance to address directly with our experts over the coming weeks. And this now officially marks the midpoint of our launch. So just to shake it up a little bit, and also because it occurred to us last night that you've heard this sonic logo at the end of many videos and a few more to come, I thought it might make sense to explain a little bit about what that is. Of course, every FSC's employee's morning ritual does include humming this melody 3 times in the mirror before work, but actually the fun fact is for any musicians in the audience. Did you know that the sonic logo is designed with music science in mind? The sonic logo is actually in the C major key, which is often considered accessible due to the lack of sharps or flats in the key signature, which contributes to memorability and hummability. Research also suggests that people connect C5, which is the key of FSC's melody and harmonic of the alpha spectrum, to a creative and relaxed mental state. And given the subject matter here of EUDR, I of course find this a little ironic, but perhaps this webinar is our Sonic logo's biggest test to date. So let's see. All right, let's keep it moving. As we've now explained what the offer is and the associated benefits, thank you, Xenia, I will now invite Yannicka up to our virtual stage to get a little bit more practical on the how does it all work. Yannicka, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Trevor. Really interesting that our FSC earworm can maybe even help me relax and mitigate my own stress, since as an outstanding FSC employee, of course, I hum it even 4 times a day in the mirror. Speaking of mitigation, let's talk a little bit about risk mitigation through our FSC Aligned certification for EUDR. As you all now know, this consists of 2 components listed on the slide here, which is our FSC regulatory module and our FSC risk assessments, which are developed through the FSC risk assessment framework. Let me give you a little sneak peek into these 2 components. So first off, we have the FSC regulatory module, and this is for all certification types in one module standard. The module builds on top of existing requirements for our forest management users, as well as our controlled wood and chain of custody users, and is also for use by our certification bodies as it includes accreditation requirements. Whether an organization chooses to use the regulatory module is completely optional, but we would absolutely encourage affected organizations associated with supply chains in the EUDR to really go for it. And why? Well, remember this slide? What EUDR is requiring is reflected within our regulatory module. Our team has spent the past year meticulously analyzing the clauses of EUDR and translating this heavy regulatory requirements into a more familiar system, namely our FSC certification. Luckily, as mentioned, many EUDR requirements are already met with your FSC certificate. So now these additional outstanding differences are now reflected into the regulatory module, clearly articulating what you as a certificate holder actually need to do when using FSC certification to support your EUDR compliance. We have also simultaneously released a series of system-wide changes to align with our own policy to address conversion, which also contributes to ensuring that our products from FSC certified forests are deforestation and degradation free in alignment with EUDR. So these additional requirements in the module include information collection, risk assessment, and risk mitigation, which comprises demonstrating due diligence all the way down to the forest level. For the risk assessment and mitigation part of your due diligence, we have an existing robust framework, recently also aligned with the EUDR. This framework is a procedure which outlines how to credibly assess and mitigate risk based on the sourcing location. And guess what? We have a template for assessing and mitigating risk already prepared for you. This is complemented by a reference document with sources of information to ensure credible and vetted information is used. Using our risk framework is integral for the regulatory module. And we've already started developing country risk assessments, which significantly takes the burden off of certificate holders supplying from those areas. So moving forward, yes, you did read that correctly. We have 90 country risk assessments on the way in the next 2.5 years, starting already today with 20. Simultaneously, we are working on supporting material and technology tools. Soon, we will be releasing a risk assessment development dashboard where you can track the development and know when public consultations are about to happen and directly participate when relevant. The risk assessment framework, as you now know, is supported by an upcoming FSC Risk Hub, which is taking our risk assessments to the next level. We know that developing a risk assessment is by no means an easy task. So check our webpage for an info kit, summaries, and tutorial videos soon to come to navigate our templates and framework and get started as soon as today. Want to learn more? Do you have some questions? I'm confident that you do. Find us at an upcoming webinar starting as early as next week for the regulatory module and advice notes, followed by a deep dive into risk assessments the following week on July 17th. Registration links have just been posted to the chat. Now, let's take a look at FSC's technology solutions for EUDR product information gathering requirements. We know that traceability is a concern for many of you. At FSC, we've developed a blockchain-based solution, allowing you to trace critical information on each product from the forest to you. This solution is, of course, FSC Trace, available in September to all certificate holders. Again, the basic version is already included in your FSC certificate. To explain FSC Trace better, let me actually just play you a video.
The Forest Stewardship Council has been fighting for resilient forests and forest communities for more than 30 years now. Over that time, supply chain traceability has become increasingly difficult as goods travel the world in more and more complex ways, making it ineffective and insufficient for today's sustainability goals, legislation, and companies aiming for ambitious targets. To fix this, we're shaking up supply chain traceability at FSC. Introducing FSC Trace, a secure digital record for verified transactions and sourcing data, ensuring streamlined compliance and verification at every supply chain stage. How does it work? Powered by blockchain technology, FSC Trace lets FSC license holders confidentially, flexibly, and efficiently access and exchange data in near real time, aiding verification, due diligence, and compliance with evolving regulations. FSC Trace enhances our commitment to certificate holders by allowing participants to verify supplier certification status at the point of transaction, generate verified, traceable claims about traded products, and record and share data on the raw materials in FSC certified products. How does a trade get verified on FSC Trace? First, you enter a trade. The trade now appears in both partners' records. The counterparty confirms the volume of the product traded. If the volume matches, the transaction is verified. That trade or block is added to the blockchain, and the trade has now been verified. How do I upload transactions? Depending on your needs, there are several ways to upload data. Direct entry. Record individual transactions directly via the website. Bulk uploads. Upload spreadsheets with hundreds of transactions at once. And API integration. Integrate your IT systems with FSC Trace using an API. This will enable relevant data to flow between the two systems. What type of data will FSC Trace provide? FSC Trace helps certificate holders comply with upcoming regulations like the European Union Deforestation-Free Regulation, or EUDR, by capturing geolocation and time of harvest, product type and classification, species in the product, volume, mass, weight metrics, and country of production. How do I control my data? With FSC Trace, you have full flexibility over how you use it. Your entire product portfolio needn't be on the platform. You can choose what products to include, how much information to share with trading partners, and customize sharing settings for each partner. Plus, all data is encrypted when it leaves you, ensuring it stays secure, and neither FSC nor certification bodies have access to the data unless invited by you as a certificate holder. How do I export data? We are building a reporting tool which will be launched in early Q4 of 2024. In this tool, companies will be able to create reports required by legislation, such as due diligence statements for the European Union Deforestation-Free Regulation, EUDR and datasheets needed for CSR reporting. Additionally, it will enable you to export FSC required reports such as volume summaries, species lists, and trading partner overviews. Data will be available both as raw data in spreadsheets and as compiled reports. How do I get started? FSC Trace will open for all FSC license holders in early Q3 2024. You can start preparing for FSC Trace today by exploring our data templates, organising your data and engaging your trading partners in data readiness exercises. Learn more at fsc.org/FSC Trace.
Great. I hope you are all excited and interested to learn more, which you can do at our upcoming Technology Solutions webinars and signing up for these with the links in the chat. And see you as soon as August 20th. Thank you.
All right, it's now back to me. We're nearly to the end here. And let's get even more practical. I'll now recap what's available today, what's to come, and I can confirm it's more than just a few more webinars, although I have to note with the change of this scale, the communication is essential and will continue. Starting on the left, FSC Aligned certification. Yes, here we are. Starting on the left, FSC Aligned certification for EUDR was made available on the 1st of July. That includes the regulatory module and the FSC risk assessment framework. You can start using this today at fsc.org/start-EUDR. It is important to note that this will include an audit from your certification body, which can also be added to your annual audit. For those of you who don't know, FSC's certification bodies are external independent parties who check and verify conformance to FSC standards, and they are very important players in making what you've seen today a reality. I should distinguish that these are different from competent authorities that are appointed by the EU who will verify submissions at the end. Here, the certification body will ensure conformity with the regulatory module, so it's important that you get in touch with them as soon as possible, and more on that shortly. If you're still in a phase of preparation, there are several other steps identified that you can get started with today while you get ready. Now moving to the right, fast forward just a few weeks now to August. An additional way we will help manage the variety and depth of questions is the release of the self-assessment tool and step-by-step onboarding website. This will include the bulk of the questions we are answering and hearing through the early adopter program, as well as from you directly through our EUDR mailbox. We hope it will allow us to support the up to 30,000 of you more easily and more scalably. And then every month from August through October, we'll have a release. In August, companies interested in FSC Trace can begin onboarding or uploading your data. And as mentioned in the video, you can actually already start downloading data sheets and start preparing data on products and trading partners ahead of this. If this is of interest to you, you can find the previous webinar recordings and other resources to help prepare at fsc.org/FSC Trace. In September, the FSC Risk Hub will come online, allowing you to manage your risk assessments digitally. And then finally, in October, the full FSC Aligned reporting for EUDR solution will be available, allowing you to consolidate your reports and statements. Now, I know that this can seem very glossy and easy and simple from the videos and how it's been presented today, but the ambition of EUDR is huge, and the timeline context here is undoubtedly a challenge for us all. So a few points for us to share from an FSC perspective as we move into implementation on this journey together. The first is about clarifying roles between the EU, companies, and FSC. FSC certification can help companies meet sustainability, legality, and due diligence requirements and provide tools to store and process data. However, being certified does not automatically exempt companies from EUDR obligations. Companies are ultimately the ones affected by the legislation directly. What's important here is to read the legislation, ensure you have the correct information flows and agreements in place and internal processes to meet these requirements. The next 2 points here are interconnected, and they're about the role of the certification bodies, which I alluded to earlier. Please note that not every certification body may offer the FSC regulatory module from today. Be aware that they are too on this journey. They may also be facing an auditor shortage, which was existing even before EUDR. What this means is that your certification bodies will likely be facing increased demand as the deadline approaches. Here, we advise you to be proactive and patient. We are in regular contact and working with them actively to ensure they have the support they need. And finally, FSC is not going anywhere on this topic. A few weeks ago in Beijing, our FSC International Board of Directors approved what you're seeing today. They additionally confirmed that EUDR implementation will continue as a FSC global priority in 2025. So we will see this through, watching, learning, and adapting as we collectively implement EUDR and upcoming legislation. Why? Well, as we approach the end, allow me a moment to recap some of the key points that you've heard today. If nothing else, please remember these 4 things. 1, FSC is aligned with EUDR, offering a voluntary, practical, and familiar option for companies needing to implement EUDR across their supply chain. 2, FSC is much more than just EUDR, which is what this visual illustrates. It is a holistic forest stewardship solution that benefits people and planet. It maintains the most rigorous and credible forest stewardship standards. 3, and because of this, FSC is the strongest foundation to comply with future legislation for forests. We are actively monitoring the global legislation pipeline and can share that part of the reason we are so active in EUDR is because we expect many countries around the world to follow suit in the demand for credible data. And whether you like it or not, more global supply chain, regulatory, and reporting obligations are coming. So do anticipate legal departments around the world getting more involved as legislations continue. And in the future, we can imagine other chapters of FSC Aligned that will help companies tackle other upcoming legislation through their FSC certification. And as you've heard throughout, we are aiming to remove as many barriers as possible for as many companies as possible to have a chance to meet this deadline credibly. So here I will reiterate a point more for your procurement folks that they might like. Nothing available today will cost anything extra from FSC. So if there's nothing else to celebrate, let it at least be that. All of this to say, EUDR is the start, but not certainly the finish in the trend towards full traceability and credible data and reporting. But it is a moment of transition as we finish taking the guesswork out of EUDR for companies and enter a new phase of implementation. And it's at this point, if there were a virtual ribbon to cut for a ribbon cutting ceremony, we would do it now because FSC is now no longer aligning. It is, as of right now, officially aligned. And as one final surprise for us, we've asked FSC staff working on EUDR around the world to reflect on what today means on the ground. FSC, what does this mean in your forest?
The EUDR makes me feel optimistic that there is a political will to solve the global forest crisis.
EUDR is like a thunder. It's powerful, disruptive, and impossible to ignore. It has lined up many opportunities in front of us, and what we now try to do is to channel that all energy and turn it into something even more powerful.
EUDR is helping to achieve truly traceable supply chains so that we know exactly where the forest products come from.
EUDR is a game changer. It's very tough, but it's also propelling our forest protection efforts to a new level.
EUDR is helping us to achieve truly traceable supply chains and to know exactly where our forest products come from.
EUDR makes me feel excited about the prospects for expansion of FSC certification in Africa and beyond.
Brands and retailers rely a lot on FSC. That's why it's our duty to provide their providers the good tools to comply with EUDR.
For Brazilian managers, the EUDR alignment is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to strengthen the FSC certified products' traceability and transparency.
In the forest-rich Balkans, foresters have practiced responsible management for centuries. With new FSC solutions for EUDR, they can now showcase their long-standing commitment and remain competitive in the European market.
为实现与 EUDR 的顺利接轨，那么 FSC 一直致力于更新我们的体系。那么今天呢，我们将首次向大家展示我们这次努力的初步成果。那么未来我们也会给大家提供更多的解决方案，敬请期待。
And there you have it. As we conclude today's webinar, please take a moment here to scan this QR code that you see on the screen to fill out a very brief feedback form. Link will also be posted in the chat. This will allow us to continue to learn to ensure we're covering as many needs as possible, and also allow us to contact you if you would like to stay tuned on what developments are coming. And as we arrive to our final slide, it's just a recap of all the webinars coming. So we've started the conversation here, plenty of other opportunities to engage coming up, more in depth across areas of the offering that are most interested to you, as well as talk to our experts directly. So with that, thank you very much for your time and attention. And please remember, when forests flourish, we all do. Thank you. Bye.